The Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election is now over, and it's time for our post-match analysis. There's a few important things to say about it. Let's look at the overall result for a start. An absolute Labour landslide, which we knew was coming. We've been speaking to people on the doorstep, and we could see that. And in the count as well, just watching them going through the ballot paper, you just see Labour, 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 Labour. So, So we knew before the result was announced, a huge victory. I mean, during the count, a BBC reporter came and had a chat to me. She'd interviewed me before, and I said, I've been watching the count. I said, 2-to-1 ratio, Labour are going to win by better than a 2-to-1 ratio. And she said, oh, do you think so? Really? I'm not sure about that. And it happened. So I'm expected to be headhunted by the BBC anytime as a political analyst. Watch this space. Now, the thing through the campaign, it was absolutely obvious that there was a massive tactical voting was going to take place. We would knock on door after door. As I say, I've got to vote Labour this time because we've got to get the SNP out. And we had a lot of people saying, we really like what you're doing. We agree with your policies. We think it's great they're here, but I've got to vote Labour this time. And you can see that in the results. So basically what's happened here is a lot of people have thought the SNP is so bad that we've got to do whatever's necessary to get rid of them. Now, if I hear someone from the Labour Party saying that this result, it really endorses the quality of our candidate, the quality of our campaign, it shows Anna Sarwar's doing a brilliant job, it shows Keir Starmer's really connecting with people, none of it is remotely true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying you can't take this election result as evidence for them because it was tactical voting on a huge scale. It didn't matter which party was in second place. It didn't matter what sort of campaign they ran. It was just the mindset of people was we're going to do whatever it takes to get rid of the SNP. And in our ridiculous electoral system, people come to the conclusion you have to vote for the party that's most likely to beat them. As I say, we had lots of people saying, really like the Scottish Family Party, agree with you on everything, I'd love to vote for you. I'll vote for you in the Scottish election with my second vote, but this time I need to vote Labour. So this tactical voting, how did it hit the Conservatives? They got 8,000 votes in 2019 in this constituency, and this time they got 1,000. Okay, 8,000 to 1,000. So the Conservatives got 4%. They're on 16% in the opinion polls in Scotland, Westminster voting intention, but in this constituency they got 4. And I think the reason for that is tactical voting. The Lib Dems got 3%. They're at 7% in the polls. They got less than half of that in the election. The Greens got 2%. Reform UK got 1%, slightly more than us, but we were both on 1%. Reform UK, if you don't know, is sort of the political wing of GB News. Some people make the mistake of thinking they're a bit like the Family Party, but they're not. I mean, they're not pro-life, they're not pro-marriage, etc., etc. They're not a socially conservative party. So that's, Reform UK. And there's not much activity in the party in Scotland either. The Scottish Family Party is much bigger in terms of activity and membership, I would imagine, in Scotland. Then we got 1%. Normally, I think with the Family Party, any election we put a candidate up, even if they don't do anything, we just put the name on the ballot paper, we'll normally bank on getting 1%. So to get 1% in this one, where we've put a lot into it, well, that's a bit disappointing. But this is a very tough election. I mean, look what happened to the Conservatives. 16% in the polls to get 4% in this by-election. So our 1%, what would it be under normal circumstances? 2%, what would show up in opinion polls? 2% maybe? I don't know. Who knows? Very, very tough conditions. 1%, disappointing in a sense, but looking at the results of the other parties, apart from the main two, sort of understandable. Right, so our campaign, what can I say about that? I can say Niall Fraser was brilliant. He's got some superpowers. I mean, one of his superpowers is he can just meet someone and be pals with them within about 10 seconds. And they'll be having a sort of jolly banter with each other, really connecting. Another superpower he's got is his speeches. He can just put words together in the right order and give really inspiring and entertaining speeches. That was brilliant. He put a lot of effort into the campaign as well, as did a lot of other people. A huge number of people came and helped in the campaign. I would say, certainly upwards of 50 Scottish Family Party activists played a part in the campaign one way or another. I'll give a special mention to David Richardson, who did a brilliant job with the street stall in Rutherglen. He manned that for hour after hour and took the initiative with that and organise that on a Wednesday and a Friday through the campaign. Right, how else could we look at the results? Another way of looking at it is that the voters of Rutherglen and Hamilton West were asked whether it is acceptable to kill the unborn. 99% said yes, 1% said no. I know which group is right. I know which group I want to be in, and I'm really pleased that it wasn't 100% of voters voting for parties that say it's okay to kill the unborn. Right, a bit about the other candidates briefly. Michael Shanks, the Labour Party candidate who's now an MP. In the BBC News, during the lockdown, he's a bit of a runner, so he ran round every single street in Glasgow. He got himself a map and put a line through the street he'd run along. So he ran every street in Glasgow. He said, oh yeah, that's quite an impressive thing to do. Right, do you think I'd have run round every street in Edinburgh and a bit more to make it the same size during the lockdown? Do you think that would have been a story in the BBC? I don't think so. I mean, if your mate ran every street in Glasgow, do you think that would be a BBC report? Don't think so. So I wonder how that story ended up in the BBC. I would imagine that what happened here is the Labour Party PR department said, right, Michael, you're probably going to be a candidate before too long. Right, how can we get you, a bit of a public profile? How can we get in the news so you're doing something that people just think, reflects well of you? So maybe Michael did it off his own bat, but then maybe the Labour PR machine said, I'll give my mate a phone at the BBC and we'll see if they'll run a story on it. I would imagine something like that happened. I might be wrong, but I would imagine. I mean, he seemed a very pleasant character. He was a modern studies teacher. Listening to him speaking, he just seemed like an orthodox talking machine. For example, his victory speech, there was not a single word in it that gave anything away about him. It could have been written by a Labour Party aide. Katie Loudon was the same. She just delivers the party line and the necessary pleasantries, and that is it. So if they had a fringe show and there's, come and hear Michael Shanks in conversation or Katie Loudon in conversation, I would just think that's the last thing you want to go and do, because they haven't given any indication at all of anything original they might have to say, anything from them as a person. Maybe that will come later. Maybe that was just what I happened to see in the campaign, but that was definitely my impression. Right, the count last night in South Lanarkshire Council headquarters. It was quite interesting. I'd never been to one before. They're always really late at night. I'm normally tied out at the end of an election campaign. But I thought I'd go and see it. There was 4 of us there from the family party. We had one young activist there in his 20s, and we saw Patrick Harvie, co-convener or whatever they call it of the Scottish Green Party. So we just went up to him and said, can I take a selfie? Just as a souvenir. So I took a selfie with Patrick. Oh, thanks, Patrick. Patrick said, which party are you from? He said, Scottish Family Party. So Patrick said, all right, nice to meet you. Yeah, best of luck. No, he didn't. So he said, what party are you from? And our activist said, Scottish Family Party. And Patrick Harvie said, F that. So swore at him. So that's Patrick Harvie for you. The other thing at the count, normally when the candidates are on stage, the winner gives a speech and all this thing. It's all sort of polite. The winner's speech, everyone gives them a polite applause. When the Scottish Family Party's results was announced, and we all gave it a clap, obviously, but representatives of each party give a clap for their result. But there was a significant amount of booing for the Scottish Family Party results. Not for any other party there, just for the Scottish Family Party results. Which was unfortunate. I think in that situation, that the campaign is over. Surely you can find a bit of grace at that point, but some of them couldn't. So overall conclusion, the electoral system is broken. I think we need full proportional representation over the whole of Britain for every type of election. The way this works is when the dominant party gets bad enough, people will unite to vote for whichever party happens to be second in that constituency. What sort of decision-making process is that? So the people who are saying that we've just got to vote Labour this time, what about next time? Every time? Forever? Where's that going to end up? It's going to end up with us continuing to go around in circles in the way that we are now. But quite a few people said to us, I've got to vote Labour this time. And I certainly personally would say to them, well, how about in the Scottish election with your second vote? What about that? Is oh yes, yeah, you'd have a vote then. So let's hope people are true to their word then. And as the awareness of the family party has grown, people have heard our policies, people have liked them, and even though our electoral system might have dissuaded them from voting for us this time, then we've laid foundations for the future. Okay, one more thing to mention, very important thing to mention. Do get your tickets for our annual conference, which is on Saturday the 11th of November. It's in Glasgow, near the centre of Glasgow, not in the low emission zone, just in the afternoon. And you don't have to be a member to attend. Part of the conference is geared, this year it's sort of geared to people who are new to the party. So we will do a little bit of explaining about our basic philosophy and strategy, as well as speeches on various different topics. And there's a drinks reception at the end of it as well, included in the bargain price of £10. So there's a link below to get your tickets for the conference, and we would love to see you there. Right, thanks for watching.